If you are a woman who has a nonprofit or wants a nonprofit and you're like the grassroots level kind of person that really cares, this is for you. This is part 34 of sharing my story on here because it is so much easier than writing another book. And we're right at the point in my life where I'm doing a ton of outreach, a ton of work, lots of awareness. I'm sharing my story of being a trafficking survivor all over the country. I'm so many speaking engagements. And really, I'm just collecting data because I understand that my story is just my story, and there's a lot of other people with different stories that are radically different than mine. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what do we need? What are the actual solutions to the problem? Like, how do we really make a dent in trafficking? Is it more awareness? If people understood what was happening, would that make a difference? And ultimately, that answer is no. No, they don't. It doesn't matter because people don't ultimately want to change their lives or their lifestyle until they're forced to. So that's a thing. But it was what running a nonprofit did to me. So I was given $5,000 to start a nonprofit, and I already had my consulting. So I was making money from consulting with nonprofits and helping them build systems. And at the same time, I'm answering these core questions of, like, how do we make a difference? What do we do? And there had been this thing that I figured out. And I don't know, I just make shit up because that's all anything is. It's something that someone thought of, they put it in paper, it checked out, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So within any movement or like good work that you're doing, there's 4 major categories. So you have awareness, you have legislation, you have prevention, and you have aftercare. It doesn't matter what social justice issue we're talking about. There's 4 major categories of things that need to happen in order for change to be created. And aftercare was my least favorite of all of it because I understand, being a trafficking survivor, what it takes and the type of resources that we need, and it's a lot of work. What I didn't understand was, at the time, this is like 2011, there's like 20 beds in the entire United States for trafficking survivors. And I started asking these questions, like, we've existed for a long time. Where are we already getting services? Like, who is already like funding the help? Because I didn't know for many years that I was a trafficking survivor. I was just a hoe. And that it's just what it is. Like, where do you get support? And I realized in the community that there was already a lot of resources, like homeless shelters, DV, organizations of all types. There's already a lot of places that are helping. And yet when you're looking at like the price per bed, so I'm doing a lot of consulting where I'm sitting in these boardrooms and they discuss price per bed. That's what they discuss in the boardrooms, is like a homeless shelter averages, at the time, this was the early 2010s, it was like you could do a homeless shelter for $10,000 to $15,000 per year per bed. And for a trafficking survivor, it was like $250,000. And I'm like, shit, do you know what I could do with $250,000 a year? Like that? It didn't make sense as to why there was such a discrepancy. So when you're sitting with someone and they're talking about giving your organization $1 million for funding, if you can only help 4 people versus 100 people, they're gonna give the money to a homeless shelter instead of a home specialized for trafficking. So there's all these problems that are going on within the infrastructure of nonprofits. And now I need to do fundraising, because 5,000 doesn't get you very far. Like it's barely the drop in the pan. How fundraising for nonprofits works is truly the most exploitive experience, because they take stories of people generally who have been helped by the program, but the programs aren't very old. So they're using these stories of people that aren't ready to share their story, and they're distributing them out and saying, look at all the good work we've done. Look at all the things we've done. While the person who shared their story normally doesn't make any money, or at most a few $100 or $500. And then they're doing all this fundraising to go and do more work. What I discovered is, as a nonprofit, You are only legally required to give 6% of your earnings to actual programs that serve people. So when you look at these big nonprofits like Red Cross, the reason why they have salaries that are so high, and Red Cross isn't the only one, in fact, it's most of them, the salaries of the core team, they are making so much more many times than even what they're doing in services. And it's shocking how ugly it is. I truly believe at this point in my life that nonprofits and the system of nonprofits within the United States was designed to keep women busy doing petty work, continuing to exploit people so we would stay out of business and not find the strength in our power. Because the nonprofits create this cycle of exploitation that must continue in order to keep the funding going to do the good work. And it is infuriating because if you actually care about the people that you're serving, you're not going to continuously exploit them, especially if you're working with exploitation survivors. And at this point in the game of capitalism, we all are, because we're being exploited for our energy every day until you just decide, fuck all of it. I am no longer a part of any system, which is truly what my story is all about. So if this is your jam, come along. So I'm looking at these 4 major categories of nonprofits and how they function and what needs to actually happen, because we need the awareness and education, that things are bad. Like if you look at each movement, they run about 30 years, and it always starts with a lot of awareness, sensationalism, trauma porn. It's just this shit that's like, oh my God, there's this thing happening. And then it hits this middle point where they're like, most people fall away and the rest who are there are really just interested in playing something like Captain Save-A-Ho, because they just want to help people. They want to save people. And in this scenario, they want to rescue people, which is like the complete removal of an individual's power and sovereignty. Like if you're wanting to help people, you have to embrace and encourage them where they are so they can make choices that change their actual life. Taking away someone's agency and right to make decisions does not give them power. Power comes through education and awareness and safe relationships and having someone that you can actually talk with. And that was what astounded me, because even though I had no intention of ever working with survivors, I ended up working with a lot of survivors because no one was fucking listening to them. They weren't listening to me, but because I was out and on the other side, I had a greater likelihood of being understood. And so I'm taking all of this information from survivors and I'm like, okay, I'm mapping shit out. I'm like, this is how things need to be done in order for services to actually be affordable, so we can get funding, so we can already, let's leverage the community resources that are already there and just do a better job. Let's help them get a better education, understand what better questions to ask. By the time I left the anti-trafficking movement, I'll just skip ahead for a minute, I ended up running a nonprofit for about 4 years, and in a firestorm of ugliness where not everyone even lived, it occurred to me that anti-trafficking is really just a new whitewashed label for colonialism. Colonialism broken down in its most simple point is, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm whiter than you, I'm more masculine than you, I know more than you, I'm more educated than you. It doesn't matter what the I'm this than you is, it's that I'm right, you're wrong. And whenever we take someone's choice away, when we take their dignity away, they have no freedom. And don't you think that's what's happening in the entire world right now? Is that our choices have been taken away, and then they give us band-aids like, oh, you can start a nonprofit so you can do good work and help people. No, motherfucker, what we need is resources. So there's that. I'm drawing attention to myself. We'll get to it in the next one.